stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and it's 6:30 on the dot. I will call a public hearing on the Brown Blade 25-26 budget to order.
Did you start the video?
Yes, I did.
Just want to make sure
Thank
everybody
you.
knows there was nobody here.
It's
No, it is recording, yeah, it is, yep, we're good. I can see it top right. Questions, anybody?
So it's like a full professor rule that we have to wait 15 minutes.
Nah, I don't know.
I don't think we have to.
No.
but,
So, right? When I talked about that.
I mean, you probably be rude to shut it down immediately.
Like, so 3 seconds later.
I didn't want to make a change. in the budget.
No,
It
I
was
understand, totally
it
understand,
was
that's why.
very small and. It's
Right.
pretty much a guess anyway, so, you know, it's. Yes.
Like very weird not having anybody here.
We can go out, maybe over to the pine.
Where's Eric?
I haven't heard that in a while.
The pines, yeah.
I have a question unrelated to the public hearing.
Mhm.
Who's in charge of making sure that contractors do proper connections to our water when they're connecting water and proper backfill
John.
across the road?
John.
Is he supposed to be there while they're doing that?
I know he is. A lot of the time, and I know he told them not to fill that, not to pave it, because it's gotta settle first, so. Cause if they just paved it immediately, it would have just, we had a dip there,
And
getting them back would be problematic.
are they going to come back and do cleanup?
I would imagine so, I haven't been down and see how bad it
They left a huge pile on my property.
was. A good year.
No.
Oh.
If it was your dirt, it'd already been in
I know.
there.
I'd be grabbing it.
It's like random rocks and riprap and just trash, which
Alright.
they should have put on the other side of the road. With the other pile of garbage. I have Slade's personal number, so.
Did we say at the last meeting that we were gonna address like fund balances at another time, like municipal
Yeah.
buildings and all that type of stuff? Okay. I was
Yeah.
making sure. Correct.
I just start thinking, oh, the truck came in, by the way, so we have a new truck, a nice new shiny big truck.
Where is it?
Speaking of fund balances,
Is it over at the garage?
in the garage, yeah, oh, yeah, they're cleaning it up or getting the, I don't know.
Is it all lettered and everything?
I believe it is, he showed me a picture of it, and I think it was
Blue, is it blue?
Are they gonna,
identical to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
are they gonna drive around the village,
Yeah.
the flags,
Yeah.
show off, big parade?
That's funny, my car's been there for 30 years, and only like 40,000 miles on it.
That's all.
After we had, John and I had a discussion. That he's kind of thinking he would like to keep it, the old one for a while, because with. What's going on with tariffs and stuff, the price of new vehicles is gonna be skyrocketing, so people are gonna be looking for.
Smart.
For older vehicles, and he said, yeah, this one's in great shape, and he tamed it. But the problem was, it was storage, but he
Yeah.
thinks he's got a solution for that, so that might be worthwhile holding off on.
Is that the international that
The
we've got
international.
I agree with that.
That's actually
At least 6 months, see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens to the
So
other.
I've got all the paperwork to get signed up with the county auction site, so when we do wanna do it, we can just
Yeah, I'd say if we have
small truck.
put it up there.
the
Yeah, we can
ability to store it for 6
You
months.
can do that local?
Tom said we could do that locally, yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, even if the village bought like a shelter lodge garage in the box, they're like $500. It's just a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oak covering. That keeps all the weather and the debris off of it. I mean,
Are we gonna give Jim Finkel the old fire?
No, it's gonna be big. We got a few people interested in it. I wouldn't want him with a siren.
Take
Isn't that
over.
what, we'll have to take all that stuff off then?
I did see, I saw. In my investigations of the auction stuff, I saw a couple of old police cars and fire vehicles. And that the conditions were that, the buyer agrees to decommission all this stuff and not use it and blah, 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 so. All right,
You had
so
something else that you wanted to.
there was the Arbor Day proclamation.
Did you do that?
No, we're still in the open,
Oh,
we're still in time here, open, whatever you call it.
I do like that chart you put together about the history of the taxes, by year.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I always knew we almost never raised taxes here.
Yeah,
And, I think maybe 1 year since I was on the board, maybe.
It looks like
yeah, it's because all the
2019.
keep jacking up the outside.
well, we've had been blessed with having, what, 30% more
People,
people.
People, yeah.
In the last 10 years,
Yeah.
so. Many hands make light work.
Yeah.
In fact, the Time Union reporter is looking to do a story about population growth in Saratoga County, and she's very interested in Round Lake, so I gave her
newspaper.
for the Time Union. So I sent her a bunch of info, including the fact that there are, this is kind of awkward to say, but there's like 58 houses in the village that have parents in them.
for generations.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, who, parents who have kids who have houses in the village.
Yeah.
So that's a huge number.
How many? 50?
There are 58.
With, sorry, parents like, as in like my situation, my mother-in-law?
Not living in the same house.
Oh,
Just a second, like,
The kids come back.
Tim-
yeah.
Okay, multi-generation,
Tim Newton,
okay,
he's got a daughter living,
In one.
in, Dave Sheridan's old house, so.
Yeah, that's
And
a
There's the whole Ryan Young plan,
yeah, the Ryan, the suites,
the Finkel plan.
Yeah.
suites, I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
I was looking at that.
And there's some that I probably forgot.
Well, and I just took that list that of
Yeah.
all the vacant
Marshmallow
houses, not
and
vacant, I should
Michelle.
say, but rental, vacant, or owned by out of town.
Yeah.
And that was a huge list, but it was kind of eye-opening.
Really? Pete
Yeah.
Marshall and who?
My uncle Pete and Michelle Decker.
I didn't know that, so that's another one, I guess.
Yeah,
So we're
because
probably up to six.
Michelle lives in the corner. And Uncle Pete lives right there.
But yeah, that's not counting the divorced families that.
There's
end up-
five divorced families. that are both-
That just bought different houses.
I didn't include that though, because that
Right.
was kind of interesting. All right. It is 6:40, and I'm closing the public hearing. Thank you all for the comments and stuff.
your work.
Have you had a lot of input, like along the way, like leading us up to here? From people coming in and asking questions or making comments or anything? I mean, some years it's like people are very vocal,
Yeah.
you know, but this year it didn't seem like
Just
that was
board
the
members
case.
and Eric pointing out the mistakes I made.
Gotta have lots of eyes on these things.
Once you decide to commit some appropriated fund balance, it becomes easier.
Yes.
Yeah, not it. So, you know what, speaking of it, appropriated fund balance, unfunded UFB. Yeah, I'm thinking that we still have, that $400,000 that we got a few years back, that's kind of, I think, what's still sitting in there, we haven't really ever
Yeah,
divested ourselves of that, so. It's not like we've been overcharging people.
No.
What was that? I think that
That was for,
Griffin's Ridge.
might not know this either.
Yeah.
Down in Griffin's Ridge, there was a chunk of land they gave us as part of public benefit, I think. That originally was gonna be used for a library, and the library said, no, we can't. for whatever reason, it wasn't gonna be used for that. So, they said, well, the village didn't really want it, and at that point, and they said, well, we'll give you $400,000 for it. $100,000 plus interest a year for 4 years. I said, okay. So that's kind of been sitting in there that now might be a good time to start spending that down, which would get us in line with where we should be.
Yeah. So, I think we got a good plan, we'll talk about it in a couple.
Yeah.
But moving some money into the slow repair plan, is absolutely
Yeah,
critical.
yeah.
And the only other piece of business I had was an official proclamation, and I don't know if this has to be a resolution or not. But,
Does it say be it resolved?
I do hereby proclaim, tell you what, I'll just read it, and then somebody can look at it, accept it, how's that? This is for Tree City, USA official proclamation, whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products and trees and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Now therefore, I, Gary Putman, Mayor of the Village of Round Lake, do hereby proclaim April 26th as Arbor Day in the Village of Round Lake. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this second day of April 2025.
Here.
So you want a resolution or?
Yeah.
That's all.
Discussion?
I said trees.
Aye. All right, there was a little discussion on bulk pickup, if anybody wanted to. I think before Eric and Tom came. Anybody had any?
Yeah, so the numbers that, so first of all, I got quotes from both Casella and County Waste. Casella did not want to do curbside at all. They offered a roll-off quote. County Waste offered quotes for both roll-off and curbside. The number for curbside for them was $1,000 for labor, vehicle, all that kind of stuff, plus $110 per ton, which based on our historic sort of pickup would put the total cost in the $10,000 to $12,000 range, depending on how much we had picked up. The last pickup was 2 years ago. When we had initially committed to doing this 2 years ago, we had thought about doing it every 2 years. And but the cost is significantly higher than it was this time compared to last time due to the fact that everything's got up in cost. So it's still, we have about 360 or so houses in the village that can do the math.
Susan might know better.
Yeah, do you know how many units we have?
So it's like, we have 346
Yeah.
water units, so.
Okay.
So
call it
it has
360
12
-ish.
after that, yeah.
Yeah. So it works out at about $30 per home for this bulk pickup, which if you do it every other year, it's about $15 in taxes per home per year, less than that if you break it up per person. So on a per house or per person basis, it's actually not too bad, because if you look at, say you want to have County Waste or Casella pick up a mattress, it's going to cost you at least $20 just for that. But yes, granted, it is significantly more expensive than it was compared to last time. I know you had mentioned a couple things, Susan, around different options. The drawback, so Malta has their own drop-off service, which we're part of as taxpayers. And if we were to do something similar to that, in my opinion anyway, sort of defeats the purpose. It's basically the same thing, except we're just doing it, and essentially people are paying twice for the same service. So my thought on it is, you know, either we decide we're gonna do curbside or not do anything at all, and just participate in Malta. Jason had brought up the fact of potentially stretching it out, so we're doing it maybe every 3 years instead of every 2. I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. The 2 downsides are, or the one major downside is if you do it, the longer you stretch it out, potentially the more bulk folks have, but really the largest cost is the fixed labor cost.
What about because there is a piece to the metal, the scrap metal
Yeah,
that comes out of it.
Yes.
I mean, if they're doing this pickup and they're charging us for it, are we getting anything back or deducted
The
based on that?
scrappers come and.
Yeah.
I know, but if you do it in a day, that was part of the thing,
Yeah.
if we had, say, a trailer down at the DPW or something that was sort of secure,
yeah,
that, you know, that it was there.
yeah,
And put the metal there, we could offset some of those costs, but
One of the thoughts that I had is. Well, our DPW staff is not very. There's not a lot of them. I was gonna say. Would we be able to have the DPW do the curbside collection? Like what is the actual labor pool that county waste is going to provide?
yeah.
Is it like 2 people in one truck just to drive around the village for one day? Or is it like a whole team of trucks?
well, that's what they did last time, with that.
Yeah, they do it in one day.
In one day,
The
that's what I
village
was
is small enough
thinking,
to do it in one day. I can't remember what size of labor. We used to sell it, which was time, Tweeters, last time around. And I don't remember what amount of, but don't forget, it's also, so it's the equipment, it's the transport back and forth, all that type of stuff too. I don't know what the crew size is.
No, I was just wondering if it was something that if we got containers from them
Yeah,
and had our DPW
it would be
crew
less,
do the cleanup.
more efficient, yeah, it's one option too,
We currently have 2 big trucks.
yeah,
But traditionally, it started out as a service and the county waste companies
Yeah.
ended up offsetting those
When it was
costs
Malta,
with
yeah.
it, with the metal stuff.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden the scrappers came along and then it's like there wasn't any scrap to sort of offset those costs, and then it became a cost to the municipality
yeah.
as opposed to a.
It was always a cost to Malta, but it went up significantly with all the, so Malta's problem was that it took 14 days for them to clear. But I will say, even when we did this 2 years ago, there were scrappers coming around.
Oh, absolutely.
at
When they
like
know
4
what's
o'clock in the
happening.
morning.
It's when everybody starts putting their stuff out like a week, 2
Yeah.
weeks
Or even if it's a few days. you
in
know.
advance, word gets around in 2 seconds.
Yes, I don't think so to your question, Susan, I think the only thing would be it would be like a roll-off type service, and then it defeats the purpose unless we did something like that you just mentioned, Jason. I just don't know, but it's like that's,
I don't know if we're set up logistically to be able to do that.
yeah. It would be kind of complicated, so, I mean, so if you divide, again, it's a significant cost, but when you divide it out and it's an every other year thing, I don't think overall I think the service, most people would be, if you asked a resident in Round Lake and said, hey, for $15, we could pick up all your bulk waste every other year, would you like to do that or not? I think most people would say absolutely.
Well, they just need $25 for garage sales.
Right, exactly.
The only thing that I see with the curbside pickup is our list the same list of items that will be taken the same as malt?
Correct, yeah,
I would imagine so.
It
It's
is,
the same
yeah.
company.
and there's stuff that they don't take.
Yeah, my only thought is how much of that stuff gets accumulated over time.
Yeah, it's a decent amount people accumulate in 2 years. And again, I'm okay with approaching this and maybe we wait 1 more year and then do it on a triennial basis, but who knows what the cost can be a year from now, I don't know, but
I'd say if we go for it this year,
No,
something, when we get a fourth DPW member, something to look at would be. Can we do the bulk, rent containers and do bulk pickup in-house? Cause none of this stuff is like super massively large.
no, not usually.
I mean, maybe there's a
They,
mattress
they,
or
they
two.
tell, they tell you to keep it to 1 cubic yard on the. That's part of the instructions when they,
Well, if you have a couch and bed and,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
blah, 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 you've already gone beyond
right,
Put it in your neighbor's house,
right, exactly.
put it in your neighbor's yard.
Yeah, exactly. I did have one year with Malta bulk pickup where, because I used to live on Bowl there, people did actually add stuff to my pile.
Well, last year, I think the county, or I think it was the county that did the recycling of TVs.
Yeah,
And you were allowed, like 2 per family or something like that.
yeah,
When you went up to the county, you drove in, if you stayed in your vehicle, they unloaded it off the back of your car, any of that, and any other electronic stuff that you were putting out, you stayed in there, it was in and out within minutes.
yeah. I was thinking, the other thing I was thinking as an option too would be to see if we could lock in a two-time contract with them. So in other words, say, hey, we're prepared to do this, but we'd like to do it in 2 years as well at the same rate. And can we lock that in? Or in 3 years, if
Yeah.
pick a number to see if we can lock in a rate so that we don't have issues with.
Yeah, I think we'd be able to get better prices if we went for like a longer term.
Yeah, at least if we did 2 in a row.
Or even say, we wanna do this bulk pickup every other year for the next.
Yeah.
10 years and see if we can get an overall lower.
I mean, I know I have crap in my basement I could put out, but. It's not the most pressing problem I have. I mean,
Yeah.
is it? I think about Victorian Landing and Griffin's Ridge, how much.
It's a popular thing, more popular than you think.
Yeah.
Like it's, and that's why I think when Malta went away from it, it was incredibly unpopular move for them to do. And a lot of people don't have the ability to bring stuff.
Right, or the stuff just accumulates outside the house,
Exactly.
and then it brings rodents, and then it's.
Exactly.
it's
And
all-
yeah, it becomes it's a great point too. It's a village, cleanliness type issue as well, like the.
I'm wondering if like, I know we said something, like, you know, if you lock in, I wonder if you could lock in to something like. If they're coming through anyway, if you set it up for whatever, either 2 days, like every 6 months or something, where one is a metal, one is a bulk.
Yeah,
You know, and then they're coming through with a purpose.
I could, I'll get back to them and. Because I put this on the back burner a little bit, in terms of dates, because I, in an ideal world, what would have been a night, what we did last time, and what I was.
Right after.
Liking to do, yeah, it's right
Right
after,
after.
garage sale, that's not gonna happen, obviously, anymore, which is fine. But I'll get back, I'll ask him a couple of questions on that.
I still think there's something that should be played into it with the metal. If we
Yeah.
can figure out how to secure the metal,
Yeah,
you know, whether, you know.
they might come back and say, yeah, but that cost us, assuming we're gonna get a certain amount of scrap metal too, they might even say, so.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what DPW is holding on to it all for, but it's
Exactly.
spilling over.
Do we have a lot of scrap back?
Oh, and we've been approached, actually, I've been approached by somebody in Boston Spa to say,
I,
hey, you've got scrap back there, I'm willing to come and take it and I'll pay you a percentage.
Let's talk about that tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I wanna, that's pretty.
Yeah, I was nervous just because I'm always kind of protective of who knows our shit,
I'm-
as well as we do.
I'm fairly confident we have to sell that through an auction. All scrap
Scrap metal?
metals, yes. And the reason why I know that is I've worked at enough of these state facilities. And all scrap metal is supposed to be treated just like vehicles, it cannot just be sold. It's supposed to be sold through the auction, so that way it's fair and we get the highest price for it.
Or not.
Okay.
So it's treated as an asset,
Yes,
So what's the,
that's what I'm.
just to get a sense of the board with this, where we're at.
I think. I do see the value added and it's not huge. It's not a huge cost. But I think if we do it this time, we either try to look into getting it extended. Get a better price or more.
Yeah.
Contract duration. I feel like they're just throwing a high number at it.
I agree. I think there's room for maneuver with the
Because
fixed labor. cost.
Double
The tonnage cost, I think is, it's 110 a ton. I think the labor cost is probably, we can talk about maybe getting into some sort of contract with that.
I also wondered, a couple of years ago, those two particular waste management companies were sort of vying for
Yeah,
a lot of business, so they could have been incredibly competitive to sort of.
And they were very
Right.
close to numbers last time around.
And I think there's some issues going on with one or the other at this point.
I know Casella said they just don't have the manpower,
Right,
and that's why they didn't even want to get involved with it.
is there is waste management around here?
No, it's just county waste to Casella as far as I know, that's it.
You see the waste management trucks, but they must be special contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it would almost be worth it to reach out to some of these other companies, like there are specific junk removal from your house companies.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I'd almost entertain the idea of reaching out to.
You want a junk dog and.
Like J-Dog or.
as it is.
And see what their price to do the bulk pickup would be.
Okay.
Cause they might even, I know they have the roll-offs and all sorts of stuff like that and the manpower. Cause they literally go into your house and they'll just
Right.
empty it.
Okay.
And they also do a lot of, like, they'll use the scrap metal to reduce your cost, but that's when they go into your house, and look at what you have.
Okay.
But that's an alternative.
I know what they contracted. A company like that contracted with. Malta Gardens, maybe? Or somewhere, or Clifton Park somewhere, and they had a problem, they couldn't pick everything up.
Oh, yeah, yes, it was, you're right, it was Country Knolls.
Country.
It was Country Knolls, you're right, because Clifton, yes, that's true, they got overwhelmed.
But they're bigger,
Yeah.
they're bigger territory too.
Yes, that's one of the nice things about the village is it's, 1 square mile.
Isn't that crazy that one development is bigger than the village?
Yes, right. So I had a couple things to add on, electric, EV charging, I don't know if we can.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that
Yeah.
now. Well, I met with, Contact from ChargePoint, so they are a company that installs EV chargers. They have a bunch up in the apartments up in Malta, they have one in the Price Chopper Plaza. They're a pretty big company. We've had a couple residents that had reached out to Gary around the potential for the village to have them. So I met with her, and so there's 2 different factors. The first factor is what they call the make ready work, and that's, I'm sure you're familiar with this, Jason, but like that's the most expensive part, right? So it's running the wires and getting the wherever you're going to install these, potentially
Correct.
install these set to go.
Structure.
Yeah, so NYSERDA and the utility companies offer massive incentives to have these done, because obviously if they get these installed, then they get a lot of electricity.
I think
usage.
tax incentives though, that wouldn't work for us.
No, they're municipal grants. So they're 90%, so NYSEG covers between 50 and 90% of the make ready work, depending on what the use is. So at the higher end is municipal usage, which is it's available to the public 24/7. There's no gates, things like that, which is what this
So
is
that
what
was
set up.
the 90%.
Yeah, so and then from there, so on the higher end, it varies based on, it can be either 80 or 90%, depending on the community that you're in. So I think we're not like a depressed community, so it'd be, I think, most likely 80%, but I have to do some more investigation on that. Definitely costs a lot of money to install those though, but again, NYSEG would pick up the majority of that, so we'd have to write a grant proposal, I think. But if we decided to go with a company like ChargePoint, apparently they can help us with some of that. So from there, the only other cost is the cost of the installing the EV itself, EV charger station itself. There's a number of different chargers you can buy. just to keep it fairly simple, level 2 chargers are ones that take, 4 to 6 hours maybe to charge your vehicle up. It's the most common one that's installed, and then there's different types of cables that you can have that connected on numbers of cables that go in each charging station. So for a typical one, which would be one charging station with 2 plugins, so you'd be able to charge 2 cars simultaneously. It would cost $16,000 to do that. That includes 5 years of software and servicing. What's neat about it is we can then set rates to recoup those costs. So you set whatever the electricity rate is plus a little buffer, and it's also customizable. So theoretically, you could charge a different rate to village residents as you would to somebody that's just coming to bike down a Zipsmith trip.
And where would the most,
So the next step would be to get somebody out for a site visit to investigate that. What I had thought about was the basketball courts, because that's in an area where we would have people using it potentially.
and the infrastructure cost to install there would actually be relatively low, because there's power line right there.
Right. And then the secondary place I was thinking was the auditorium library area. We have to be cognizant of the fact that I know because parking spaces, we don't want to take away village resident parking spaces to put in EV spaces. So I think in an ideal world, you want it like over there, because it's an area that's not used as much for village parking. And we could also potentially expand. There's areas where you could take a little bit of grass here and there to
Correct.
put those 2 spots down. So that was my suggestion.
That's actually very good. I can see that as a very good location,
Yeah.
and the installation of that actually isn't going to be that terribly expensive.
Now, is NYSERDA still offering grants?
They are, yeah. Yeah, and they're cyclical, so we have to determine what grants are available when, and we might have to wait a little while to do it. But what I would like to do is get the charge point rep out, and I'd like to have you, Jay, tag along with that for a site visit, and then just to focus on what the next steps would be. But it seems very reasonable to me to do. There's some other things that are like frequently asked questions. Others, like for instance, can somebody just keep their car parked in there all the time? You can set it so that if they go past their charging point, that there's what they call idle fees. So it's an incentive for them to unplug their car once it's charged up, things like that. So they've thought about all the different types of things. But what I thought was one of the coolest things is you could charge a different rate for residents use basically, and then non-residents that use it.
I assume it's credit card.
It's that, yeah, so you install software on your phone, and you can either tap or whatever on your phone, or I think there are cards if you're old school, and then it just it connects to your account. It unlocks the charging point, and then you just plug it right in, and then it charges you per kilowatt hour.
So are there like different
There are
cords for?
Yes, so the model that this one model that's $16,000, it's a smart one where it releases the right cord based on what your car is. So Tesla has its own, and then most others have a universal. It's like a USB charger versus a lightning charger for Apple. There's basically 2 main ones.
Yeah.
Is there you talk about level 2, there's level 3.
They're extremely expensive.
There's specific jump.
And they're extremely power intensive.
Those are the
I
fast
know,
chargers?
if it's going.
Yeah.
Necessary to upgrade in the future.
They're in the 6 or 7 figure range, depending. Yeah, they're very expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask, what about putting one of the DPW
That's
or
not,
us using,
Yeah.
starting to purchase electric vehicles, because our guys don't go very far.
that was another thing I think is a long-term consideration, because I think the governor is gonna mandate that municipal vehicles in the next X amount of years have to be
Right.
electric for new purchases, so that's something that we could definitely.
How do snow plows work with that?
Yeah, really.
They make heavy duty, I'm actually working at an international location right now, installing a class 2 ADM EV charger. What's that? And they do make heavy trucks that are electric now. They are extremely expensive, and they require special chargers that a class 3 can't even handle.
Yeah.
What it is it's a class all of its own, it's heavy equipment. And it's usually you end up setting up your own service for it, and it's like a 1200 amp or larger service. Right off of the power lines, its own transformer, because like CDTA has them,
Mhm.
you can't tax it on with the building, it's just too large.
Yeah.
Cause the draw is insane.
Right, yeah, Shen purchased, I think, 6 electrics this year.
Yeah, sometimes even high voltage to individual transformers for the charging stations.
What was your other question, Aaron?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it feels like right now, a lot of the car manufacturers are backing off straight EVs too, and
Yeah.
moving to the hybrid model.
Plug-in hybrids, yeah,
So, I mean, in that model, if you're just driving around picking up stuff,
yeah,
you may be able to just run on battery, but if you
Yeah.
want to snowplow, you have a backup, a generator in the vehicle, basically.
the way I envision it is somebody runs, somebody wants to bike down Smith Trail, somebody wants to go to Leah, somebody wants to. They're in the village and they're visiting a friend and they need to plug in for a little bit, like, because most people will install their own level 2 charger at their house, that's the most efficient way to do it, this will be more of a public service.
Or
Type
also for
thing.
the people who, the 50 houses that don't have driveways.
Yeah,
Right,
like-
exactly. Yeah, right, exactly.
It doesn't even get it.
Yeah, and if you, and what I would say too is like. Again, this might be a question for the person when they come out for the site visit, but we could start at 2 and maybe go up to 4 if it turns out that there's a demand for it. And
Yeah,
once you have, and we could future proof it.
So that's what I was gonna say, is if we were going to do this, we would want to put in a large enough service.
Yeah.
To maybe double or
Yeah,
triple.
right,
Because
future-proof it,
the
yeah.
major cost is the initial
The major-
infrastructure.
Yep,
To
The
make
tricky
it.
part there is getting potentially, is getting the grants. They don't like to give grants for you to build 3 times the infrastructure for what you're gonna use.
yes, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, we should have to figure that out.
Yeah, so that's, I think, so if I get the board's sense, everybody's okay with me getting this person out for a site visit and investigating, and we can report back and basically you're cool
Is
with it.
there a way of
Yeah.
putting these little electric boxes in something that looks a little bit more appropriate for our historic village?
Good question, I can ask.
There is a way, there's probably a way to do that, because if we're talking level 2 chargers, they're only like that big.
And they go on a pole.
So
And how-
what we could look into is over near the basketball courts, building like a little 4x4. Building of similar decor.
Yeah.
That the service is inside of that building, the electrical equipment, and then the 2 chargers are mounted on the outside. It could be done in a tasteful manner,
Yeah, I was gonna say
But-
this.
that also does elevate the cost.
This could be a dumb question, but will these work on hybrids as well?
Plug-in hybrids,
Plug-in
yes,
hybrids.
correct, yeah, and plug-in hybrids have a much smaller battery, so they would charge up in
Quickly.
half an hour. And the other thing, so that number also, so the number included the software, so there's software that we, that takes in like all of the payments, we get a payment at the end of each month from ChargePoint based on the usage. We obviously would pay the electricity, so we need to figure out what those rates are. But the software also includes like warranties against somebody knocking the thing over with their car or somebody cutting the cable or something like that too. So I think from a village perspective, those were optional. You could certainly like choose not to have that and just call somebody out every time something broke, but from our perspective, I think it'd be worth having something, but and the cost is like maybe $300 a year total for that.
Well
worth it, yeah, exactly. So I think overall it makes a ton of sense. It would also go towards our smart city credentialing. So we've already got the LED streetlights. This would be another factor for that, and that enables us to potentially get more green grants down the road too. So having EV chargers in your municipality is seen as a positive for other grants.
If we were gonna do this, I do think we should look at. Doing something around the auditorium as well. somehow.
The only thing with that is just we have to make sure that we're not sacrificing other.
Well,
resident parking.
I would make that a residents only
We can't.
You can't,
You can.
No,
like, we can't even have resident only parking.
Yeah.
there because of,
Public.
public, it's all public parking.
yeah. I mean, theoretically, we could set the rate at $100 a kilowatt hour for non-residents. That would be the trick, but, no, it's, yeah,
So actually, how, side question, how does that work if somebody just parked their car there?
yeah,
You can put up signs and they can technically, if they're found
Get towed.
not using an EV charger, they can be towed.
I was
We'd have to-
wondering
we'd
if
have to
the camera or something, charger.
Monkey around with our.
and if they plug in for too long.
Good job, Bob.
Yeah, you can do that.
I guess.
He'll actually have something to do.
I was gonna say, he finds stuff to do, he does.
I haven't seen that, honestly, I kind of keep a lookout for all these things, I'm sure it happens sometimes, but I've never seen, although during an auditorium event, I guarantee you somebody would try to park there. If I was- No doubt, no doubt.
That's the move.
So
Yeah.
if there's a fire ordinance, so you have to keep it far enough away from the auditorium.
Yeah, so those are all things that I think with a site plan visit, site visit, we can,
Or maybe the ball field.
that was another
For
place.
a second location.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in front of the tennis court.
So we have like a transformer there.
So that's the update on that, so I'll keep you all in the loop and we'll arrange something to, get her or whoever out to give us some more information.
I guess I do have one thing is, I don't know if I need a proposal to do this or not, but I found smoke detectors and a home base station for the auditorium for a fire protection stopgap while we look into getting a professional grade system in the auditorium. David Straight being a firefighter, he ended up talking to the fire chief, and it is recommended by the fire chief that this not be the end all be all fire protection system. But this is a great stopgap till we can get an actual monitored fire protection system in the building.
Want to email that around?
Yes, I can.
Which one do you go?
The one that you have in your house, the Accents wireless.
On a side note about the Xsense ones, you can actually plug in the wireless, but you can actually use other things. You could actually put in motion sensing.
Security
So
system.
like a secure, like the door opener,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Reviews on that particular piece weren't fantastic, but it might be a minimum thing we could do for some of the doors if we wanted to. It's just the same system.
I think that.
Does it have a monitoring service or no?
You can get a monitor.
It's a subscription fee.
It's a subscription.
Yeah.
Eric is the monitoring service.
Yeah, with this, you can set up automatic notifications to certain phones.
Okay,
And then the fire chief did say whoever gets a notification, call 911
yeah, okay,
first. And then do an investigation.
got it.
Yeah, kind of the discussion was, since I'm across the street, I can stick my head out and say, oh yeah, the building's on fire.
Yeah.
And then call 911.
Got it. Okay.
But literally, we all could get the app and we would all get the notification. Because I always.
And we can have the conversation with the fire department and say, hey, can the 3 chiefs or who over here can also be added to the notification list?
Make it Tina or David too.
David already volunteered to be on it because he said he's right behind it. And if the auditorium's on fire, he really wants to do something about it because he doesn't want to lose his house.
So you're gonna circulate it, but what's the cost, just so?
It's under $300.
Okay.
Under what?
300.
And actually, they were on sale last week.
Correct. Yeah.
If we wait till Prime Day, we can get them for like 150.
Petty cash.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with just going.
Yeah, we thought it would be a good idea to get them over there before Harvey Dam is in and stuff.
I think they need to be in there. Oh, and the other thing is our fire suppression, fire extinguishers are out of date and we're missing 2.
Okay.
And out of date means, I don't even know who schedules this, but you know, they come and check them and charge them and tag them as being charged. They were allowed to go to 23.
Yeah, I think so.
They come through the building, come through here pretty, not frequently, but I had seen them over the last couple of years, I don't know if it's annually or.
Who does that?
I don't know if it's the fire department, but I know they come up and they check the ones upstairs and in the back room.
That's a good deal.
As long as
I mean,
don't hear, they should come.
this one is also,
Okay, so we may have not just, I know you have to pay for somebody to come do that.
I'm not quite sure who it is that comes in, I'll ask next time I see him, but I just have always taken it for granted that it's either the fire department or New York State, I never paid attention because I was upstairs.
So start asking chief or.
Yeah,
Yeah, that might be something that the past chiefs have done and just kind of,
oh, by the way,
yeah, fell by the wayside.
Yeah, I have a kitty wireless alarm system in my house and there's like $50 a piece. So that's under $300 for 12. And I don't know anything about the specs, but
The thing,
if you're satisfied with it,
I started saying,
Right, yeah, right. Have you had many false
Are they
alarms?
battery operated?
they're 100% battery operated.
Rechargeable?
10-year replacement.
Yeah, that's the new law, by the way, for fire alarm. If you replace smoke detectors, you have to have a 10-year lithium-ion battery now.
Yeah, and they're not replaceable.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the system I have, but I just paid $50. I paid over $500 for mine because I have 10 of them,
Yeah, when I was looking at them
and that
and
was 5 years ago.
to get the same notification capabilities, it would be like upwards of $1,000 for all the other brands.
These use the wireless access that's already there?
Yes,
so they use internet for the communication to the app.
Right.
If that fails, they still communicate with each other.
with each other.
It's like X something or something, like, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
they
They
talk
have to have radio frequency and they're connected, so if there's a fire in one part of the auditorium, they all go off.
That's what I have in mind too.
Right.
I'm okay with approving those now, I don't need to see any further information.
But again, this is only a stop.
No,
gap.
Right.
And I think that system also can, we could go crazy, I think you can go to like 50 different units, so it attaches to the central unit.
I'll buy it off you once it's, I'm not even kidding, I like, yeah, you could probably sell that on, seriously, if you only use that for a year or two.
Actually, what my idea with this is when we're done with these smoke detectors, to turn them over to the fire department.
Okay.
And they can donate them to people
There you
who
go.
need a
Great idea,
detector.
you know. Like, do you need a motion to approve something like that, or is that? No, okay, so we're good, yeah. go
By
ahead.
the way, I noticed as soon as you got a meeting, you started talking like chargers.
It's not true, not true, Gary, just email before my,
He's been on this for.
I have,
two,
I
three
can show the
years now.
emails.
I can bugging me about it.
I'm just teasing.
I don't want my, it's gonna cost me, yeah, no, it is. It did actually spur me to reach out again, but actually a resident emailed like a month ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do think it's something that we should definitely be looking into. Because it's also one of those things that if we can get ahead of it. Get ahead of that curve,
yeah.
we're better suited.
All right. Good stuff. All right, entertain motion to adjourn. So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Well, thank you. This has been one of the best meetings of my career.
Very pleasant.
Very productive.
Okay, so are you gonna send? We're all okay with giving the fire alarm, so you're just gonna send him the information and.
Yeah, I'll give it to, oh, is it like, can you get it at Best Buy?
No, right on Amazon.
I mean, we can order from Amazon.
Amazon, buying through Amazon.
How long did it take you, Mac, to get from Watertown here?
Well, I stopped along the way, but it's. I left from, actually from.
Yeah.
There's no way to
And that
do
was
it.
3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
But Loudville's like, right.
If we can find it someplace else.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean,
I drove-
at that cost,
drove
how
out there
is
this
that?
morning, and then drove back.
Yeah.
$500,
$300.
Tiny job.
$21
But
have to eat.
I would have to do this for about a year, and it's gonna change.
So what's the?
Oh, we don't have.
I thought we had
I cover from Utica
Really?
to.
We do
I
not.
thought we had a village credit card.
to Rochester,
Like,
and then all the way up
much
to
easier.
the
Why is that?
Watertown, Messina, Oxford, Hot Sand Canyon, all
Yeah.
those towns in that
It
area.
can't be under the village of Round Lake.
Lighthouse.
And, yeah,
But
and
I was
get to
I
your
was
coverage.
able to open up a
Outside of Syr, like.
Another
Syracuse,
electric
Utica,
credit
it's
card.
Easy.
Right out of,
Yeah,
once you get up to
credit
right.
cards.
I drove home from Hot Sand a week or two ago.
Yeah, but you have a
it's not.
EIN,
Came through,
doesn't the village have an
like,
EIN?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I
That's
have
all
a
you,
question.
that's all you need.
If I buy the stupid things and I do it my house, can I?
All lakes back.
I never understood why people.
Except for
Live there?
tax.
Oh, I know.
It's gonna be honest. That's fine, I'll do it. I'm sure it does, that's why I will definitely, I will do this time.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you a credit card, do it all the time.
But okay, that's.
Really?
Have a village grant.
Maybe, yeah.
Cha-ching.
But I remember Heather was going.
Oh, it's the middle of nowhere.
So you'd be able to have village.
Controller's not great.
When I was driving home the other day.
What about a village debit?
It's not, the other day, a couple weeks ago, there's a lot of snow up there.
I'm still trying to get direct deposit.
Yeah, right, this woman had not.
Another notary in the building.
And so I pulled over and had no cell phone signal. And she had gone into like a
Direct
snowbank. I was
deposit,
like,
that would
maybe
be
try to
awesome.
get her out. She was buried anyway. So this guy comes out and he'll pick up trucks. So I go like this. He had a tow hitch and.
Where do you live in?
Wiped her out. He's like, what happened? You go off the road there, you're screwed. There's no cell phone, no nothing.